Hi HipKit friends, I am Sarah Millerhouse and I'm excited to be here with you today to share this layout I made using the sketch that you just saw. I am using the November hip kits. Mostly I'm using the main kit and the embellishment kits, and the color kit. But mainly the main kit. All of the pattern paper is from the main kit and most of the embellishments. So I am starting with the sketch. I'm taking the general layout of that sketch and finding the pattern papers that I want to use. So there were lots of blocks of color or blocks of images on that sketch. And so I'm using patterned papers to make the 5 main little boxes that it had, and then it had 2 smaller boxes, and you'll see I'll add those here in a little bit with a frame, with a chipboard frame and embellishments. So the first thing I'm doing is just kind of trimming down some papers. I didn't have measurements or anything from the sketch, so I was just trying to use the scale. Mine ends up being a lot fuller than the sketch is, but I have the same layout. I stuck pretty close to that same layout. So I do go back and trim down some of these papers just to kind of get a better scale. And really I'm kind of eyeballing it here on what's going to be there. The thing I do love about this sketch is how layered it is. I always love to layer lots of things on my layouts, and so this sketch works really well for that. So here I was just drawing the general layout of what those papers are going to look like, just so I knew I am going to add a little bit of color to that background, and I wanted to know generally where they were going to be so that I could add some color around there. So I am using one of the beautiful patterned papers from the November kit, and it is just a white with black dots. So it works really well as a neutral. But I did go here with some white gesso just to kind of fade out a little bit of that pattern. You can still see the pattern through the white gesso, but I was adding the gesso to make sure that when I add some color to that background, some mixed media, just a little bit of mixed media to that background, that it doesn't warp my paper too bad. So that is where I'm starting with it. I just put that off to the side to dry. And I'm going with the patterned papers that I've selected and distressing the edges of those using my Tim Holtz edge distresser. I love how that looks. To add texture to a layout, usually I distress all of the edges of all of the things that I add to a layout. So not always, but most of the time. So here I'm doing that, and I love these beautiful patterned papers that are in this November kit. So Christmassy and beautiful. And it lends itself really well to a wonderful Christmas layout. So that's the direction I'm headed. So the photo that I'm scrapping for this layout is a sweet photo of my babies reading a book with me. So that's one of our favorite Christmas traditions, is reading together at night. So that's what this photo is about and this layout is about, and I love that. So here what I'm doing, the gesso is dry. Doesn't take long for it to dry. And I am adding this color that I'm adding is a shimmer, the original Shimmers. Christmas Cheer is the name of it, and it is from the November color kit. And it is so bright and beautiful, very gold. It's a little more yellow than just a straight gold, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And lots of shimmer and shine. So to activate that, for the original Shimmers that come in these little beautiful jars, they already have the water. You just mix it around, make sure to get all the little bits and pieces of gold and color and all of that in there, mix it around, and then you just paint it on. So I did go here and add a little bit of water. My brush was pretty wet. I added a little water to the brush just because I didn't want the color to be so vivid. But it's still pretty vivid on that finished layout, and I love it. Love everything about it. So here I am taking some of the embellishments from that main kit and just going through the package and picking out some things that I think I want to add. And here I'm just playing around with the placement of the things. I haven't made any decisions yet. I'm just kind of seeing what I like. I do try to get that Merry Christmas on the finished layout. I end up not using it, but I do love it. So I'm going to find another layout to put that on for sure. But most of these other little pieces I use. So I am going to trim the white edges off of most of those. So this little ornament I will end up using layered on top of a chipboard frame. And I love this little nutcracker. He's so cute. So super cute. And nutcrackers are one of our favorite family traditions because my mom always collected them. And my aunt and my cousins and my mom and I would always go the day after Christmas to the after Christmas sales and pick out new nutcrackers. So my mom has a huge collection of those and she's passing them on to me right now, one at a time. So one Christmas at a time, she's passing her collection on to me, which I love. So that is a sweet, sweet family tradition in our family. And I loved, as soon as I saw him in the embellishment pack, I was like, oh, that has to go on my layout for sure. Because this layout is all about sweet traditions with my babies. And nutcrackers are meaningful to me. So I'm going to be adding him on there. And then I love this little tag. I do end up using that little tag to do some layering. And I kind of know what I want to do with all of this, so I'm going to put that off to the side while I finish working on the background. I did let this sit off to the side to dry, and now I'm just going, there were a couple little pockets that were still wet, so I'm going and drying those really well with a paper towel. I do actually love when it's just a little bit wet still. I love going with a paper towel because it kind of gives it just a little bit different texture when it pulls up little bits and pieces of it. So that's just something that I like. I like how that looks when you do that. And then here I am using the cheer stamp. So this stamp comes in one of the November kits. You can get that. And it is so cute. It's the word cheer and it's like kind of like messy, almost like a messy mixed media stamp that's already made for you. So it's just the words stacked on top of each other and layered over each other. And I absolutely love how that looks. And then I did use that with the passion fruit ink pad that comes in the November color kit. So all of that comes together. That beautiful layering can be easily done with the things found in the color kit this month. So now that I know that's pretty much all the mixed media I'm going to be doing on the background. So I'm going to go and add the patterned papers now with the same layout that was in the sketch. And I am putting those down. I did use dry adhesive, and then I also am layering on one little bit of wet adhesive just to make sure it's really good and stuck down. And because I am layering it just a little bit on top of the mixed media that's still maybe a touch wet, I wanted to make sure it was really good and adhered down. So I'm getting those on there. And you can see it is set, the layout is generally kind of set off a little bit to the left, but my layout does look a lot fuller than the sketch does. So that is an okay thing when you're using a sketch, because it's really just to give you the idea and the general layout and to spark some creativity, which this definitely did that for me. So now that I've got the paper glued down, I can go and start working on all of the embellishments and playing around with where I want those to go. So in the original sketch, there is, so that general, like it's got 5 big rectangles of color or pattern paper or something on the sketch. And then there is, in that top left-hand corner, there is a smaller square that's kind of offset by itself. So here I am using this chipboard frame, and I am framing just a piece of the darker patterned paper. This is a beautiful navy. It does have a pattern. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but it does have just a very subtle pattern on it. And I am using this navy up in the top left-hand corner, and then I have the navy patterned paper in the bottom, kind of bottom middle, and then I'm going to be adding a darker element off to the right. So I'm trying to triangulate the colors on my layout. So if you are going to have very big contrasting colors on a layout, it's always good to triangulate those colors if you can. So to have it kind of, and what I mean by triangulate, like having it in 3 spots, kind of like in a triangle around the layout. So you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here in a second. So I did frame that little ornament. I'm just adding a little bit of thread twine to it and then popped it up on craft foam. So here you can see what I'm talking about. So in the bottom middle, I have a dark navy patterned paper. So I added a dark navy patterned paper in that top left, and then on the right side, kind of towards the end of the process video, I'll be adding another dark element over there to kind of complete that triangle of color. And then the other colors, I'm doing the same thing. It's something I don't think about. I just kind of tend to do on my layout. So I'm kind of doing the same thing with the turquoise as well. You'll see that's going to end up being another triangulated color as well. So it just helps your layout come together and look cohesive. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking the little tag that was in that embellishment pack. I did distress the edges of it, and I'm adding that same twine that I added to the ornament up there. I'm adding that to the tag, and then I did pop that up on craft foam. So I love to have lots of layers and depth in a layout. So that's what I'm starting to do by adding craft foam behind some of those elements. The other patterned paper is all flat on the background. So I did distress the edges to add texture and depth, but it's all flat glued to the background. So now the pieces and parts that I'm going to add on top of that are going to have different levels of craft foam and different layers to give that depth. So here I'm using one of the patterned papers as a mat for my photo. I actually end up adding another yellow as well from the cardstock kit. I did it's a very gold mustardy color that matches all of the pattern paper in the kits, and it's one of my favorite colors. Actually, all of these colors, red, turquoise, and mustard yellow, are my favorites. So the November kits definitely are my jam. So here I took that embellishment piece. It's like almost like a little Christmas village, and it had a little banner at the bottom that says Special Christmas Memories. And so what I did is I cut the banner off. I'm going to put it right back where it was, but I'm going to put craft foam behind it at a different level than the houses, just to kind of give a little bit more depth. So I love to embellish my embellishments and play with the embellishments and add a little bit more detailing to those. So they're gorgeous just how they are. You can use them just how they are and stick them on a layout. They're absolutely beautiful. Or you can add some of your own little bit of detailing to it. And that's what I'm doing here. So I did cut the white border off. There was a white border around the whole thing. So I did trim that off. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere down the house. Well, first I distressed the edges a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and adhere those down. And then the little banner that's at the bottom, that's sort of acting as my title as well. And that is where the title is on the sketch. I'm adding that little banner, and it just sits a little bit higher than the house, than the houses. And I love how that looks. So it makes it look like I almost added a second piece, even though that started out as one piece. All right, and so here I grabbed the chipboard frames, one of the chipboard frames, and it says, I think it says "We Are Family." I went right along with my photo. So you saw me trim off the pieces that I'm not using. So whenever I'm using chipboard frames on a layout to do layering, if you're not going to see the whole thing, I cut off the part you can't see, because I will go back and use those on other layouts. I love to save my embellishments that way and be able to use them in lots of different places. And here I had another chipboard frame, and it looks pink. It's actually red and white stripes. When you see the close-up photos, you'll be able to see that. So I just framed one of the leftover pieces of paper from that gold mat that I had made. I used the other side of it. And I just framed that piece of paper and added it as another layer underneath my photo. So I'm kind of building the cluster around the photo. And that helps draw your eye in to what I want you to see on the layout. And there, what I was doing with that twine, I kind of wanted the pieces of the bow that I made to lay a certain way. So I added just a little tiny dot of glue. You can't even see it at all on the finished layout, and it will hold that so it sits how I want it to sit. And here I kind of fast forwarded a little bit. So you can see I'm gluing down some more embellishments. I added that little ho 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 on the bottom left corner of that photo, and then I added my little nutcracker that I love right there on the side of that photo. And that's going to be the start of the embellishment cluster on that bottom left side. So in the sketch, there were flowers on the bottom left of the photo. And so here I added some other embellishments, and then I'm also going to add some flowers. And the flower pack is from the embellishment kit, I'm pretty sure. So I've said before in my videos, when I was just a Hip Kit subscriber before I joined the design team, I always ordered my two favorite kits to order were the main kit and the embellishment kit. That's what I've been ordering for years and years and years, like 4 years, I think, 5 years maybe. So between those two kits, the main kit alone, you can get lots of beautiful things and everything you need to make lots and lots of layouts. But I always also added on that embellishment kit just because I love all of the beautiful things in there. So those two kits have my heart for sure. And the color kit as well. So really all of them, but no, those were my two main ones that I always ordered. Okay, so here what I'm doing in the sketch, there were also some embellishments on the top right of the photo. So I used the little houses, and then also where the title was on the sketch. And now I'm using the trees instead of flowers on the sketch that it has on the top right side. I'm using the trees in the place of that. So I'm just making like a little tree village. I loved the scale of those trees next to the little village houses. So I thought the scale went really well together. All right, and here I'm gonna start working on that floral cluster. I'm not gonna make you watch me add every single little piece. I will skip ahead here in a minute. But I do love all of the flowers, and many of them came already, they didn't have a white border, so I didn't have to do a lot of fussy cutting for this layout because they had the color all the way to the edge, which I love. So I picked a lot of those. I did do a little bit of fussy cutting. So there I sped ahead a whole bunch. I didn't make you watch me do all of that, but I just layered and added lots of different flowers and leaves and things to that cluster. And like always, I bent up all of the edges of the petals of the leaves and the petals of the flowers and the leaves. I like to bend those up to add lots of great texture and depth to a layout. Okay, and then here, this is the last little element that I added was the hand stitching that was in the sketch as well on the left and right of the photo. So I went and did that off camera. And I'm adding my journaling in the same spot as it had it on the sketch. And then I added a few little layers of paper down there just to triangulate the color around my layout. And I added that word memories to the right underneath that tree. And I love how all of that looks. And there is the finished layout. So some close-ups for you to see. And I hope that you will like this and subscribe to the Hip Kit channel to get lots of great videos. Every day a new video is posted, and I have links below to the blog if you would like to see the close-up photos, and then also to purchase the kits. Have a great day, guys. Bye.